A millionaire sees his childhood love begging with two 3-year-old twin children and recognizes her. But what he does next is unbelievable. Before we start the story, comment below which city you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Ethan Morgan, a ruthless millionaire, was crossing a busy street corner when something caught his attention. A woman dressed in dirty, worn clothes with disheveled hair sitting on the sidewalk. Her face was tired and marked by suffering. Beside her, 2 little girls, twins about 4 years old, wore tattered clothes. One of them was quietly crying, rubbing her eyes with small, dirty hands. "Sweetheart, it's okay. Someone will help us soon," the woman murmured, stroking the child's hair with a trembling voice full of desperate love. Ethan felt a pang in his chest. He knew that face. Even through the dirt and pain, it couldn't be but it was Chloe Sullivan, the love of his youth, the girl he used to admire from afar. She had never noticed him in school except to mock his awkward attempts to get her attention. Now, she was here, vulnerable and helpless. Ethan approached slowly, his heart racing. "Chloe," he called hesitantly. The woman slowly lifted her head, her eyes widening as she recognized the voice. "Ethan." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy with painful memories. Then Chloe lowered her gaze as if wishing to disappear. "What happened to you?" he asked, unable to hide his concern. Chloe looked away, clutching the girls even tighter. "It doesn't matter. We're fine. Go away, Ethan." But Ethan couldn't ignore what he saw. One of the girls was sobbing from hunger, while the other clung to her mother's arm, staring at him with wide, frightened eyes. The pain and despair of the scene hit him like a blow. "You're not fine. Come with me. I'll help you." "No, I can't," Chloe began to protest. "I'm not leaving you and your daughters out here in the cold. You're coming with me, and I won't take no for an answer." The girls looked at him, curious yet cautious. The one who had been crying pressed her lips together, holding back her tears. Chloe hesitated, but Ethan's determined gaze made her relent. Ethan pulled out his phone and called his driver. "Be here in 5 minutes," he said before putting the phone away. "Let's go. There's no reason for you to stay here." He extended his hand to Chloe, who reluctantly took it. When the car arrived, Ethan helped her get in, carrying one of the girls while she held the other. The children were exhausted, their faces resting on their mother's shoulders. During the ride to Ethan's mansion, the silence was oppressive. Chloe stared out the window, lost in thought. Ethan glanced at her occasionally, trying to understand how her life had fallen apart. When they arrived, Chloe looked visibly uncomfortable. The grand mansion, with its warm lights and immaculate garden, seemed like another world. "You don't have to do this, Ethan. We can—" "No more arguing, Chloe. You'll come inside, eat something, and rest." The housekeeper, Mrs. Harper, opened the door with a surprised expression, but said nothing. Ethan instructed her to prepare a room for Chloe and the girls. While Mrs. Harper took care of that, Ethan brought Chloe and the children to the living room. He lit the fireplace, creating a cozy warmth, and asked for food to be prepared. "Thank you, Ethan. Really, thank you," Chloe said, her eyes brimming with tears as the girls curled up on the sofa beside her. Ethan nodded, his mind racing. He knew that this night was just the beginning. Tomorrow, he needed to understand what had truly happened to Chloe and how she had ended up here. The sun was just beginning to peek through the windows of Ethan's mansion, but Chloe was already awake. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she watched her twins, Ela and Aria, still sleeping soundly. For the first time in a long time, her daughters were warm and comfortable. That should have eased her heart, but instead she felt a growing knot in her throat. Across the mansion, Ethan was also awake, sitting in his office, thinking about everything he had seen the night before. The image of Chloe on the sidewalk holding her children wouldn't leave his mind. He needed to understand how this had happened. After all, the Chloe he had known in school had been confident, full of life, someone who seemed destined for great things. Shortly after, the housekeeper knocked gently on Chloe's door. "Miss Sullivan, breakfast is ready. Mr. Morgan would like you and the girls to come down." Chloe thanked her and woke the twins. A few minutes later, they went downstairs together to the dining room, where a generous breakfast spread awaited them. The girls ran excitedly to the chairs, delighted by the variety of fruits, breads, and juices. Chloe, however, hesitated. "Please, have a seat," Ethan said, appearing in the doorway. He was wearing a crisp white dress shirt and looked relaxed, though his eyes revealed a serious undertone. Thank you, Chloe replied, pulling out a chair while watching Isla and Arya eat enthusiastically. During the meal, an awkward silence lingered between Ethan and Chloe. He knew he needed to tread carefully, but he was determined to understand the truth. When the girls finished eating, Mrs. Harper took them to play in a nearby room. Chloe remained seated, now alone with Ethan. He rested his elbows on the table and looked her straight in the eye. "Chloe, we need to talk. I want to understand what happened to you." She averted her gaze, clasping her hands in her lap. "It's not a story I like to tell. I'm not here to judge." "I just want to help," Ethan said, pausing to choose his words carefully. "When I saw you yesterday, you and your daughters were in a situation that, well, it doesn't happen overnight." What happened, Chloe?" She took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment before beginning to speak. "After we graduated high school, I started dating Dylan Scotchu. Remember him, don't you? He was the most popular guy in school." Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening at the mention of the name. He remembered Dylan all too well, someone everyone admired, yet who wouldn't hesitate to hurt others to get what he wanted. "Dylan and I started dating right after prom. I was in love and thought he felt the same. A few months later, I found out I was pregnant. When I told him I thought we'd face it together, but he abandoned me. He said he wasn't ready to be a father and didn't want the responsibility. That was the last time I saw him." Ethan clenched his fists on the table, struggling to contain the anger welling up inside him. "He just left you?" Chloe nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "Yes, I was alone, with no support. My parents couldn't help much, and I did what I could to provide for the girls. But it wasn't enough. Eventually lost my job, and over time the bills piled up. When Isla and Arya were 2 years old, we were evicted from our apartment. Since then, we've been living on the streets, relying on the kindness of strangers." Ethan sat in silence, processing everything he had just heard. The Chloe he had once known was strong, but life had broken her in ways he never imagined. "Why didn't you ever ask for help?" he finally asked, his voice softer now. "I was ashamed," Chloe admitted, ashamed of how my life had fallen apart. "I didn't want anyone to see me like this, especially someone like you." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a mix of compassion and sadness. "Chloe, no one deserves to go through this. You're not alone anymore. I'll help you and your daughters get back on your feet." "Why, Ethan? Why are you doing all this?" He hesitated, but knew he had to be honest. "Because despite everything, I care about you. I've always cared." Chloe sat in silence, unable to respond. Ethan's words echoed in her mind as she tried to process everything that was happening. That night, as Chloe tucked the girls into bed, she reflected on what Ethan had said. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. But she also knew that accepting help meant facing her deepest fears and rebuilding her life from scratch. The next morning, as sunlight poured through the mansion's large windows, Chloe woke to the soft laughter of Isla and Arya playing on the carpet beside the bed. For a moment, she felt like she was dreaming. It was hard to believe that just 24 hours earlier, she had been sitting on a sidewalk, unsure where their next meal would come from. She stretched and called the girls to get ready. Fresh clothes had been set out in the room, carefully chosen by the housekeeper. Chloe was struck by the thoughtfulness, though she still felt out of place in such a luxurious setting. When they went downstairs for breakfast, Ethan was already in the living room reviewing some papers. He looked up when he heard the twins' footsteps and gave a faint smile. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. Isla nodded eagerly, while Arya shyly held her mother's hand. "Yes, it was the best night we've had in a long time," Chloe replied, a touch of gratitude in her voice. "I'm glad to hear that," Ethan said, gesturing for them to sit. "You don't have to worry about anything today. I want you to rest. The girls can play in the garden or wherever they like." Chloe hesitated. "Ethan, I don't know how to thank you for all of this, but I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. As soon as I can, I'll find a job." And Ethan raised a hand, stopping her. "There's no rush, Chloe. Before anything else, you need to recover. Don't worry about timelines. We'll figure this out together." Despite his reassuring words, Chloe still felt a weight on her chest. Accepting help didn't come naturally to her. However, her daughter's well-being came first, and for their sake, she swallowed her pride. After breakfast, Isla and Arya went to play in the garden under Mrs. Harper's supervision. Chloe, meanwhile, helped clear the dishes, feeling uneasy about not contributing more. Ethan found her in the kitchen, shaking his head as he saw her trying to wash the dishes. Chloe, you don't have to do that. I need to do something, Ethan. I don't feel right just taking everything without giving back. Ethan sighed. If that's how you feel, fine. But for now, I want to talk about the girls. Do they have everything they need? Chloe paused, thinking. They need a few things, like clothes and shoes. What they have is old and worn. Great, let's go out and get what they need. Chloe's eyes widened. That's not necessary, Ethan. I can manage later. No discussion, Ethan said with a gentle smile. I'll get the car. Half an hour later, Chloe, Isla, and Arya were in a children's store downtown, with Ethan watching closely. The girls were delighted, running between the racks and trying on new clothes. Can I really get this, Mommy? Sila asked, holding a sparkling blue dress. Chloe's heart ached at the sight of her daughter's bright, hopeful eyes. Yes, sweetheart. You can. Arya, the more reserved twin, held up a pair of new sneakers. Me too, Mommy. Chloe nodded with an emotional smile. You too, my love. Ethan watched silently, pleased to see the girls so happy. After picking out clothes, shoes, and a few toys, he took them to a restaurant for lunch. During lunch, the twins chattered excitedly, sharing stories and playing with each other. Chloe watched them, feeling a sense of relief as she saw them smiling at last. You've done so much for us today, Ethan. Thank you, Chloe said sincerely. I've only done what anyone should do, Ethan replied casually. You deserve this. Chloe lowered her eyes, the shame creeping back. She knew Ethan was being kind, but she couldn't help remembering how she had treated him in the past. You're a much better person than I was to you, Ethan, she murmured, almost inaudibly. Ethan frowned. Chloe, the past is behind us. What matters now is what we do moving forward. She nodded, though the guilt still lingered. When they returned to the mansion, the twins ran straight to the garden, showing off their new clothes. Chloe watched them from the living room window, a smile on her face. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Ethan, standing beside her, broke the silence. They're incredible little girls. They're my strength. To keep going even in the worst moments, they gave me a reason to move forward. Ethan looked at her with admiration. You're stronger than you realize. Chloe, to go through everything you have and still stand tall, that's something few people can do. She sighed. I don't know if it's strength or just stubbornness. But either way, thank you. Ethan smiled. If you ever need anything, you know you can count on me. Chloe nodded, finally feeling that she could trust someone besides herself. The next morning, Chloe woke up to the soft sunlight streaming through the curtains. Ela and Arya were still fast asleep, their faces relaxed free from the worries they had carried on the streets. Chloe watched her daughters for a moment, feeling a mix of relief and hope. Maybe starting over was possible after all. After getting dressed, she went downstairs and found Ethan in the kitchen, sipping coffee and reading the newspaper. He looked up when he heard her footsteps and smiled. Good morning. You sleep well? Yes, thank you. And you? Like a rock, he replied, folding the newspaper and standing up. Made coffee for you too. Have a seat. Chloe thanked him, feeling strangely at ease with the routine that was starting to form. As she sipped her coffee, Ethan sat across from her and said, I was thinking. Now that the girls are more comfortable, we can start focusing on you. On me, she asked, surprised. Yes, you mentioned wanting to work again. What kind of job are you looking for? Chloe stayed quiet for a moment, weighing her options. I don't have an academic background, so my options are limited, but I'm willing to do anything that allows me to support my daughters. Ethan nodded. That makes sense? But what if you could study, finish your education, and get a job that truly brings you fulfillment? Her eyes widened. Study. That's out of the question, Ethan. I don't have the time or resources for that. You'd have both here. I can help with the expenses and make sure the girls are well cared for while you study. Chloe shook her head, incredulous. You've already done so much for us. I can't accept anything more. Ethan leaned forward, his expression serious. Chloe, this isn't just about you. It's about Isla and Arya. If you have the chance to grow stronger, it'll benefit your daughters in the long run. Please think about it. Ethan's words struck Chloe deeply. She knew he was right, but she still struggled with her pride and shame. That evening, after putting the twins to bed, Ethan asked Chloe to meet him in his office. He had something important to discuss. "Chloe, I have a proposal for you," he began, handing her a small envelope. She opened it to find information about business and entrepreneurship courses. "I want you to consider taking these courses. You're smart and determined, and I believe you have the potential to achieve great things. So give you the tools to support yourself and create a better future for your daughters." Chloe looked at the papers, her mind racing to process the offer. "Ethan, this is too much. I'm not sure I can do it." "You're more capable than you think. You don't have to decide right now. Just consider it." Chloe held the papers tightly, feeling torn between fear and hope. In the days that followed, Chloe began to reflect on Ethan's proposal. Gradually, she realized this could be her chance to change her life, and most importantly, give her daughters the future they deserved. Finally, after much thought, she agreed. She enrolled in the courses, and with Ethan's support, began studying during the day while the twins were cared for by Mrs. Harper. Although the beginning was challenging, Chloe felt reinvigorated as she learned new skills and rediscovered a side of herself she thought she'd lost. Each day was a small victory, and she clung to the idea that she was building something lasting. Ethan closely followed her progress, offering encouragement and support whenever she needed it. He knew Chloe needed to believe in herself as much as he believed in her. Chloe in turn started to realize how important Ethan had become in her life. His constant presence and unwavering support were slowly breaking down the barriers she had built over the years. Chloe's routine was changing quickly. In the mornings, while Isla and Arya played in the garden, she spent hours studying in the office Ethan had set up for her. At first, every page she read felt like climbing a mountain. But over time, she found her rhythm. Ethan's steady and unwavering support motivated her even more. One afternoon, as Chloe reviewed her notes, Ethan walked into the room with a serious expression. She immediately sensed something was wrong. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. Chloe felt her stomach tighten. "What is it?" "I found someone from your past," Ethan replied, sitting across from her. The name thundered in Chloe's mind. Dylan, the man who had abandoned her when she needed him most. The father of her daughters, who had never acknowledged them. Chloe took a deep breath, trying to control the wave of emotions. "What does he have to do with this?" she asked, her voice steadier than she expected. "I've been looking into some things. Wanted to understand better what happened to you after school. Found Dylan and decided to confront him." "You did what?" Chloe stood, startled. "I needed to know the truth about what he did to you, and why he abandoned you and the girls." "Ethan, you had no right to do that." "Maybe not, but I did it for you." Chloe stayed silent, her chest tight. She knew Ethan meant well, but bringing Dylan back into her life felt like reopening a wound that hadn't fully healed. "What did he say?" she finally asked, her voice hesitant. Ethan rested his elbows on the table and sighed. He admitted everything. He said he knew you were pregnant but didn't want to take responsibility. He claimed it was easier to disappear. "Let's play a little game. For those who only read the comments, type pizza in the comments. Only those who make it this far will understand." Now, back to the story. Chloe felt her anger rise like a tide. She hadn't expected anything different from Dylan, but hearing those words out loud still stunned her. "Did he mention the girls?" she asked, her eyes brimming with tears. "No, he didn't even ask about them." Chloe clenched her fists, trying to hold back her tears. As much as she despised Dylan, a part of her had always hoped that one day he would show remorse, or at least some curiosity about the daughters he had abandoned. Ethan stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Chloe, you don't have to face this alone. I'm here." She looked at him, struggling to resist the urge to break down. "Thank you, Ethan, but there are things I have to handle on my own." That night, after putting the girls to bed, Chloe sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold. Ethan's words echoed in her mind, and the thought of Dylan lingered like a shadow. She knew that to move forward, she had to confront the past once and for all. The days that followed, Chloe tried to resume her routine, but she couldn't focus. Memories of Dylan and the confrontation Ethan had mentioned weighed on her like an anchor. Ethan, noticing the change in her demeanor, decided to give her space, but watched her with concern. One morning, Chloe made a decision. She picked up the phone and called Dylan. He answered after a few rings, his voice indifferent on the other end of the line. Dylan, it's Chloe. We need to talk. There was silence for a few seconds before he replied, About what? It's been so long. It's about the girls. You've never wanted to know anything about them, but that needs to change. It's not for me, but for them. Dylan sighed. Chloe, I've already made it clear I don't want to be part of this. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry, 'cause I'm not. Chloe's heart tightened, but she kept her voice steady. So you'll never meet them? Never take any responsibility? I've moved on, Chloe. I think you should too. Before she could respond, the line went dead. She stood there, holding the phone, trying to process the emptiness left by that conversation. It was the closure she needed, but also a harsh confirmation that Dylan would never be part of her daughter's lives. When Ethan arrived that evening, he found Chloe sitting on the couch with the twins asleep beside her. He sat down next to her, waiting silently for her to speak first. I talked to Dylan, she finally said, breaking the silence. Ethan frowned. And how did it go? As I expected, he doesn't want anything to do with them. Feels nothing. Ethan clenched his fists, his anger evident. He doesn't know what he's missing. Chloe looked at her daughters and sighed. I didn't do it for him. I did it for the girls. I needed to be sure there was nothing left to expect from him. And now, Ethan asked gently, do you want the girls growing up under the shadow of a father who never cared? Ethan nodded, admiring the strength Chloe was showing. He knew she still carried the pain, but he could also see a renewed determination in her. The next morning, Ethan surprised Chloe with a small gift, a notebook and an elegant pen. What's this? She asked, curious. A tool for you to plan your future. I want you to write down your goals and what you need to achieve them. We'll work on it together. Chloe smiled, touched by the gesture. Thank you, Ethan. I don't know what I'd do without you. You do exactly what you're doing now, rebuilding. I'm just here to make sure you have every chance to succeed. One evening after putting the twins to bed, Chloe found Ethan in the garden, sitting in one of the rocking chairs. The soft moonlight illuminated his face, and he seemed lost in thought. Are you okay? Chloe asked, sitting beside him. Ethan smiled. I was just thinking about how much has changed. I remember when I saw you that night on the sidewalk. I never imagined we'd end up here. Neither did I, Chloe admitted. But I'm glad it happened. Me too. The silence between them was comfortable, as though words weren't necessary. Ethan looked at Chloe, the gentle glow of the moon reflecting in her eyes. He knew he was falling for her, but he didn't want to rush anything. Chloe, do you believe in second chances? He asked, breaking the silence. She smiled, pondering the question. I think I'm starting to. Ethan nodded, encouraged by her response. He knew they were heading toward something special, something both of them needed, but only time could solidify it. The next morning, Ethan decided to plan a surprise for Chloe and the twins. He arranged a small trip to a nearby farm where they could spend the day outdoors, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Ela and Arya were ecstatic when they heard the idea, and Chloe, though surprised, was grateful for the chance to spend meaningful time with her daughters and with Ethan. The day was filled with laughter and unforgettable moments. The girls fed the farm animals, ran through the fields, and enjoyed homemade ice cream. Chloe, meanwhile, felt more connected to Ethan than ever before. He seemed completely at ease interacting with the twins, as if he had always been part of their family. At the end of the day, as they drove home, Isla and Arya were fast asleep in the back seat, exhausted but happy. Chloe watched Ethan as he drove silently, a slight smile on his face. Thank you for today, she said softly. There's no need to thank me. It was a special day for all of us. Yes, it was. And it meant so much to me to see the girls so happy. This is just the beginning, Chloe. There are many more moments like this ahead of us. She smiled, warmed by his words. For the first time in years, she believed the future could be bright. When they arrived at the house, Ethan carried the twins to their room, making sure they were comfortable before turning off the lights. Chloe stood nearby, moved by the care and dedication he showed. That night, as she lay in bed, Chloe felt ready to finally let go of the past. Ethan was right, second chances did exist, and she wouldn't waste the one she had been given. Mornings at Ethan's mansion were now filled with life. Isla and Arya ran through the house, laughing and filling the space with contagious joy. Ethan, who had once lived a quiet life focused solely on work, found himself increasingly involved in the twins' routines, and more importantly, in Chloe's growth. One morning, Chloe was getting ready to leave. Ethan had invited her to accompany him to an important meeting, an opportunity to observe how he handled negotiations and led his team. Though excited, she was also nervous. She didn't want to make any mistakes or feel out of place. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, waiting for her by the entrance. "More or less. I hope I don't mess up." "You'll do great, Chloe. Trust yourself." When they arrived at the company building, Chloe was impressed by its grandeur. Ethan guided her to the meeting room, where several executives were already gathered. He introduced her as a promising collaborator, which made her feel both proud and slightly self-conscious. During the meeting, Chloe listened attentively, absorbing every detail. Ethan encouraged her to share some of her ideas, and to her surprise, her suggestions were well received. "You have a very clear perspective," one of the executives commented. "Thank you. I'm still learning, but I'm glad I could contribute," Chloe replied with a modest smile. Ethan watched the interaction with satisfaction. He had always known Chloe was capable, but seeing others recognize her abilities was even more rewarding. After the meeting, Ethan took her to a nearby cafe. They sat at an outdoor table, and Chloe, now relaxed, ordered a cappuccino. "You were amazing today," Ethan said, taking a sip of his coffee. "I was so nervous," she admitted, "but it was exciting to be part of it." "This is just the beginning. You're building something solid, Chloe." She looked at him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "None of this would be possible without you, Ethan. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. All I did was show you the way. The credit is all yours." Their moment was interrupted by a call from Mrs. Harper, letting Chloe know that Isla and Arya were asking for her. Ethan smiled. "Looks like your little ones miss you. They're attached." "They can't stay away for long," Chloe said with a laugh. When they returned home, the twins ran to their mother, hugging her tightly. Ethan watched the scene, feeling an ever-deepening connection with the girls. He loved their boundless energy and how their laughter could brighten any space. Later that afternoon, Ethan decided to organize a small picnic in the garden. Isla and Arya were thrilled, helping to pack a basket with sandwiches, fruit, and juice. Chloe sat on a blanket spread out on the lawn, watching the girls run around with Ethan. "You're getting more and more comfortable with them," Chloe said as Ethan sat down beside her. "They're incredible kids. It's impossible not to grow attached." "Thank you for being so good to them, Ethan. They feel safe and happy here, and that's all I've ever wanted. They're part of you, Chloe. And for me, that's enough." His words touched Chloe deeply, and she felt her heart race. She knew her feelings for Ethan went beyond gratitude, but the fear of fully opening her heart still held her back. As night fell, Isla and Arya finally grew tired and fell asleep in their mother's arms. Ethan helped Chloe carry them to their room, and together they carefully tucked the girls in. As they stepped out into the hallway, Chloe paused, looking at Ethan. "You've changed our lives, you know that?" "You've changed mine too, Chloe." The intensity in Ethan's gaze made her feel vulnerably, yet safe at the same time. She knew she could no longer ignore what she was feeling. Later that evening, while Chloe was in the kitchen, preparing a cup of tea, Ethan walked in, stood silently for a moment, watching her before stepping closer. "Chloe, there's something I need to say." She turned to face him, her heart beating faster. "What is it?" Ethan hesitated briefly but decided to be honest. "Since you came here, my life has completely changed. You and the girls have brought something into my world that I didn't even realize was missing. I care about you, Chloe, far more than I can put into words." His words washed over Chloe like a wave, catching her off guard. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond, but then she smiled, her eyes glistening. "Dad, Ethan, I care about you too. But all of this, it's still so new to me. I need time." Ethan nodded, respecting her honesty. "I understand. I'm not asking you to rush. I just wanted you to know how I feel." Their moment was interrupted by a faint noise from upstairs. Isla had woken up and was calling for her mother. Chloe smiled and went to tend to her, leaving Ethan alone in the kitchen. He sighed, looking at the abandoned teacup on the counter. Winning Chloe's complete trust would take time, but he was willing to wait. What he felt for her and the girls was worth every moment of patience. In the days that followed, the relationship between Ethan and Chloe continued to grow, marked by small yet meaningful moments. With each passing day, Chloe felt herself opening up to him more. while Ethan remained patient, giving her the space she needed to heal and trust. There was still a long journey ahead, but both were ready to face whatever came their way together. The sky over New York was covered in thick clouds, signaling an impending storm. Chloe was in Ethan's office, reviewing the reports he had asked her to work on. She felt more confident in her abilities now, but she still approached each task with the seriousness of someone who understood how much this job meant for her new life. Ethan walked into the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one beside Chloe and sat across from her, observing her in silence for a moment before speaking. "You're doing really well. You know that?" Chloe looked up, surprised by his casual tone. "I'm trying, but I still feel like there's room for improvement. You're hard on yourself, and that's a good trait. But I want you to know I'm proud of everything you're accomplishing." Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she turned her gaze back to the computer screen. Ethan's compliment felt like more than just professional praise. There was a warmth in his voice that she couldn't ignore. Time seemed to pass quickly as their bond deepened naturally. Ethan always found ways to show he cared, whether through small gestures or words that made Chloe feel special. On her end, she noticed herself gradually lowering the protective walls she had built, though she still kept a subtle guard up. One night, after the twins had gone to bed, Ethan suggested Chloe join him on the mansion's terrace. She hesitated, but let her curiosity guide her. When they arrived, Chloe was struck by the view. The city lights shimmered like stars, and the cool night air carried a calmness that contrasted with New York's usual bustling pace. Ethan stood beside her, quietly admiring the way her eyes reflected the city's glow. "I used to come up here when I needed to think," he finally said, "but lately, I don't feel that need anymore. I think it's because I found something that brings me more peace." Chloe turned to him, sensing there was more behind his words. "What brings you that peace, Ethan?" he said without hesitation. His words took her by surprise. For a moment, she was speechless. Ethan took a step closer, lessening the distance between them. "From the moment I saw you that night, something inside me changed. And as we've spent more time together, I've realized that what I feel for you is unlike anything I've ever experienced." Chloe's heart raced. She knew her feelings for Ethan were growing, but hearing his confession out loud made everything feel more real. "Ethan, this is all so new for me. I'm still trying to find my footing, to be strong for myself and the girls. I'm not asking you to rush, Chloe. I just want you to know how I feel." She took a deep breath, looking into his eyes. There was a sincerity there she couldn't ignore, and for the first time in years, she felt like it might be safe to open her heart again. "I feel something for you too, Ethan, but I need time. I need to be sure I'm ready to move forward." Ethan nodded, respecting her hesitation. "I'd wait as long as it takes." Their moment was interrupted by the distant rumble of thunder, signaling an approaching storm. Chloe looked toward the horizon, feeling the cool breeze on her face. "We should head inside before it starts raining," she suggested. Ethan agreed, but the light in his eyes made it clear that this conversation had changed something between them. In the days that followed, the atmosphere between Chloe and Ethan grew more emotionally charged. There was a subtle tension in their interactions, as if both were trying to find a balance between the personal and the professional. One evening, Ethan decided to surprise Chloe with a special dinner. He asked Mrs. Harper to look after the twins and personally prepared a meal for the two of them. When Chloe came downstairs and saw the elegantly set table, she was speechless. "You did all this?" she asked in disbelief. "I wanted to do something special for you," he replied with a smile. During dinner, they talked about everything: work, childhood memories, dreams for the future. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and they felt increasingly comfortable in each other's presence. "I never imagined I'd be here with this chance to start over," Chloe said, reflecting. "And if it weren't for you, Ethan, I don't know where we'd be now. You'd be somewhere fighting like you always have. I just had the privilege of helping. But it was more than that. You believed in me when no one else did. It makes all the difference." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "I'll always believe in you, Chloe. Always." His touch was warm and reassuring, and Chloe felt the walls she had built over the years begin to crumble. She still had her fears, but she also knew Ethan was unlike anyone she had ever met. When dinner ended, Ethan walked her to her bedroom door. For a moment, they stood in silence, just looking at each other. "Good night, Ethan," Chloe said softly with a gentle smile. "Good night, Chloe." As she closed the door, she leaned against it, feeling her heart race. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she wasn't alone. Ethan, meanwhile, walked down the stairs with a smile on his face. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to take every step needed to win Chloe's heart completely. That night, as the rain finally began to fall, they both fell asleep with a new sense of hope, as if the future was starting to reveal itself. Ethan and Chloe's daily lives began to flow with a surprising ease that caught them both off guard. The twins were growing increasingly attached to Ethan, and he in turn showed genuine affection for them. Yet Chloe still had moments of doubt, not about her feelings, but about whether she was ready to fully trust someone again. One afternoon, while Chloe was working on reports in the office, her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from an unknown number. When she opened it, she saw a photo of Ethan talking to an elegant woman at a restaurant. The caption read, "Do you really know who he is?" Chloe's heart raced. She knew Ethan had a social life and professional contacts, but the message unsettled her. The doubt she had tried to push away came rushing back. Who was that woman, and why would someone send her a message like that? Ethan arrived home later that day, seemingly at ease. He found Chloe in the living room, with the twins playing nearby. He immediately noticed something was wrong. "Are you okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. Chloe hesitated for a moment before showing him the message. "I got this today." Ethan frowned as he looked at the image. That was a business meeting. "She's a consultant. We're hiring for a project." Chloe wanted to believe him, but the message had cast a shadow. "Why would someone send this to me, Ethan? It feels like they're trying to warn me about something." "I don't know," he replied, "but I can find out. Chloe, you have to trust me. I would never do anything to hurt you." His voice was steady, and his tone carried genuine sincerity. Chloe looked into his eyes and saw something she couldn't ignore, the transparency of someone with nothing to hide. "I want to trust you, Ethan, but this caught me off guard. My whole life has been filled with disappointments. It's hard to ignore that fear." Ethan gently held her hands, giving them a reassuring squeeze. "I understand, Chloe. I won't pressure you. I just want you to know that I'm here to face anything by your side." In the days that followed, Ethan investigated the source of the message and discovered it had been sent by a disgruntled former employee he had let go months ago. He showed Chloe the evidence, making it clear there was nothing to fear. Chloe felt a mix of relief and guilt. She knew she was still learning to trust, but she also realized that Ethan was willing to do whatever it took to ensure her emotional security. One night, after putting the twins to bed, Chloe went to Ethan's office. He was focused on some documents, but looked up as she entered. "Can we talk?" she asked, closing the door behind her. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Chloe sat in the chair across from his desk and took a deep breath. "I want to apologize for doubting you. I know the message shook me, but that doesn't excuse my lack of trust. You've always been honest with me, and I need to be fair to you." Ethan gave her a soft smile. "You don't need to apologize, Chloe. I know how hard it is for you to let your guard down. I'm here to help, not to judge." His words struck a chord, and Chloe felt tears well up in her eyes. "You're so different from anything I've ever known, Ethan. It scares me, but it also makes me want to believe I can be happy again. Let's play a little game. For those who only read the comments, type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who make it this far will understand." Now, back to the story. Ethan stood and walked over to her, kneeling by her side. He gently wiped away a tear that had fallen down her cheek. "You can be happy, Chloe, and you don't have to do it alone." That night, something shifted between them. The walls Chloe had kept up for so long finally began to crumble. In the weeks that followed, they shared increasingly meaningful moments of closeness. Ethan continued to show patience and care, while Chloe slowly allowed herself to trust him completely. One afternoon, as they strolled through the park with Isla and Arya, Ethan watched Chloe playing with the girls. In that moment, he felt an unshakable certainty. This was the life he wanted. When they returned home, Ethan asked Mrs. Harper to watch the girls for a few hours. He took Chloe to the mansion's terrace, the same spot where they had shared a pivotal conversation months earlier. "Chloe, there's something I want to say." She looked at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a delicate ring. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you and the girls. You've brought light and joy into my life in a way I never thought possible. Chloe, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she covered her mouth in shock. "Ethan, yes, I will." Ethan smiled as he slipped the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a tight embrace. The storm that had defined the start of their journey had finally passed, and they were ready to begin a new chapter together.